And here's Muckle, Chapter 7, Part 4. We're in here about amateur archaeology, how if you are an enthusiast and don't want to get paid, but actually pay your own transportation sometimes, your own room and board, you can join um, an archaeological dig, and they'll start you at the bottom with unskilled labor and get you up to skilled labor pretty soon. And then maybe after a couple of digs, you can start getting paid, and that would be fun too. A lot of people do that. They spend their vacations digging. Looting is digging for artifacts to sell illegally. And this is what we don't want to do. One, it's just bad, but two, it actually is really, really damaging to, um, everything. Uh, Everything we're trying to preserve here is knowledge. It destroys the knowledge. So digging, all excavation destroys the immediate and larger context within which the artifact had been safely held for thousands of years. So when we do an ordinary professional archaeological dig, we are destroying the site. It's that's what archaeology is taking it apart, and it will never be the same. So archaeologists, when they dig, the point is that they document all of these contexts as they're being taken apart, layer by layer, documenting what was there, where it was in the site, um, all of that, what we call provenience, the three-dimensional location of each feature or artifact within the site, um, at each level as you go down, and then spatially as well from side to side, as well as all of the other stuff that you collect, doing flotation and setting up a grid, sorry, a sieve, um, filtering out the dirt, doing testing on the dirt, on the soil to find out what kind of chemicals are present there, floating out the various flora and fauna, bones, um, um, all kinds of little bits of wood and whatever else you can find in there. It's absolutely necessary to do this stuff in order to preserve or document. Actually, we're not preserving the actual material; we're destroying it, but we're documenting it so that the information that is carried in that material is kept around. Uh, when the context, when these sites are destroyed by looters without being examined and documented, all the meaning that could have been derived from those contexts is destroyed forever. Yes, they get a beautiful pot and they sell it for $10,000 or whatever on the internet illegally, um, and that's sad, right? That this beautiful pot will never get seen by ordinary people, only the friends of the collector. But what's worse is that all the really useful information alongside that pot was destroyed without being documented. We will never know which site it actually came from. Was it from this site on the national in the national park, or that side of the river? Right? Um, where in the site was it found? Horizontally and vertically. What was its relationship to the other stuff in the site? There were all sorts of other things there. Broken pots that were even more important, maybe, because you could find substances on those. Telling us what was cooked in there, or what the substance was, where it was made from, where it was brought from. It could have been brought from another part of the country. You could do chemical analysis on the pot and on the pot next to it and find out, well, this one was from locally, but that pot next to it was from 1,000 miles away. We won't know this, right? It's over. How old the site was, how old that level was within the site, because you didn't document that. Uh, what was next to the pot, the chemicals and pollens that were in the soil around it. Nobody kept track of that. They just dug up the pot and ran away with it. The bones, seeds, and food residues that might have been in it. I mean, you could find out all sorts of things about the diet of the people um, from the root residues that are in the pot. But you're not a professional archaeologist with equipment or knowledge of how to do that kind of analysis, so it's gone forever. You who uh, support this by buying the stuff. Basically, it's the trade that keeps it going. If there was no money in it, nobody would do it. Remnants of trade goods that might have been buried next to it that could have told us a whole bunch about the networks of that site to other sites. general conclusions about the wealth, ethnicity, gender, etc. of its users, other information that is the actual meat of archaeology. When we do archaeological research, we're trying to find out about the everyday lives of the people who are using the artifacts, not necessarily just about the artifacts. We're anthropologists. We're interested in the people, not the things. And you've just destroyed that. Looting is bad for numerous reasons, but we academic archaeologists are interested in specifically the information that's lost that could just completely blow apart everything we've ever believed about Southwest Ohio and the kind of people who lived there 3,000 years ago. Overall, archaeology overcomes biases toward written records and the wealth and power associated with literacy. It gives us access to the lives of ordinary people, slaves, poor peasants, indigenous people, etc. All of our ancestors were these at one time or another, and we care about that. Archaeology provides balance and helps gives voice to the voiceless, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. World heritage, archaeotourism is tourism around ancient sites, of course, highly developed in many countries, not so much in the United States, although it's growing. People are really coming, white Americans or Americans from other parts of the world whose ancestry is not directly connected to America's archaeological heritage are increasing. Although still, I mean, Cahokia probably doesn't get 1/1,000th of the trips to the number of tourists who go to Colonial Williamsburg or some of the historical archaeological sites that have feature more recent immigrants. Archaeology of the contemporary world, garbology, or maybe probably the big ones would be the southwestern sites, that we saw in the video. But still, I think probably the historical sites are more the post-contact sites are probably more attractive to the whites. Garbology, the study of contemporary North American trash. Americans love to create enormous landfills and to bury their cabbages and hot dogs there. Americans create 25% of the world's trash. They spend more on waste management than on fire protection, than on parks and recreation, libraries, and school books combined. And go watch The Sopranos to see what. No, sorry. The main gangsters. That's his official job is waste management. Sorry. Where are we? Here we go. We're gonna watch a video.
Archaeologist. So I was trained to learn about ancient societies by digging up, sorting through, and analyzing ancient garbage.
Professor Bill Rathje isn't just talking trash, he's digging it.
We're trying to look at today's society the way an archaeologist will in 1,000 years without waiting that long. All of the daily aspects of our lives, what we eat, how we clean, how we have a good time, it's all buried in here. People think I'm nuts. This is the heart and pulse of America, right here. Nowhere else. This is where it all ends up.
Feeling that heartbeat is why Rathje helped start the University of Arizona's Garbage Project in 1973. These garbologists perform large-scale excavations at landfills across the country. A special machine is used to bore down 100 feet into the trash heap to pull out piles of old garbage. Team members sort and sift through the waste, bag it, tag it, then categorize it.
The weight is 16 ounces solid. Brand is Armor.
The deeper the digging, the older the trash.
Be nice if we could get a good date right off. Coupon void after October 13th, 1963. We're getting a good cross-section of what's in the landfill so that we can get a good idea of what was thrown in, when, and what's happening to it.
You might expect food products to break down and magically disappear. Rubbish, says Rathje.
A lot of people believe when you throw paper and food debris and yard waste into a landfill, it will biodegrade and disappear. And that just doesn't happen. Food debris and yard waste, about 50% of it will biodegrade in the first 15 years, and then it stabilizes.
But the rest of the garbage that makes up a landfill isn't going anywhere for a very long time.
As far as we know, there's no real significant difference in how long it's going to take paper or styrofoam or plastic of any kind to decompose. A lot of people think that landfills are being filled up by fast food packaging, styrofoam, and disposable diapers.
But paper is a recyclable material, yet it accounts for 16 times more volume than the total amount of those so-called environmental bad guys. Translation, too much paper is being trashed.
One of the most interesting things to me is that when you study the packaging and the food remains and the recyclables at a landfill, it tells you a different story about us than when you ask people what they eat and drink, what they recycle, what they throw away. And that's because we like to think that we're recycling everything. We like to think that we're doing the right things. You get the reality here at a landfill.
And the reality is we need to do a better job recycling.
A phone book. Look at this, the archaeological record of a lost civilization.
Lost? Not yet. These remnants tell the tale not only where we've been, but also where we're headed.
We're in what archaeologists call a classic period. That means we're at our peak. Everything's going great for us. Resources are pouring in, and we're wasting them at an incredible rate. Sooner or later, the resources dry up, and eventually they collapse. This is not a gloom and doom perspective. This is a perspective based on studying hundreds of civilizations that have come before us. They've all gone through the same cycle. We should definitely learn from the past. We can make our cycle better and more fun to be in by knowing a lot about how to create less garbage.